Welcome back to Foundation Paper Piecing Series 4, this time for September. You see the apple here. We all know that's apple picking season here. And especially in Washington and Idaho, or especially in Washington, there's so many apples and I love them of all colors, all varieties. There's so many apples. Is one of our favorite things to do as a family in the fall, right? Everyone gets the hayride. So foundation paper piecing, more and more people are catching the bug. And that's my goal here today is I'll do a refresher course on trim, sew, press. How do we do it at Shabby? Why kits are a great value. And if you have been putting this off or had a negative experience, I'm going to change that today. Give me just a little bit of your time because I also had a really negative experience. I couldn't catch the rhythm of it. It didn't come out. All of my fabric was cut too short, and I put it aside for decades before someone I actually saw at a quilt retreat doing a Judy Niemeyer, and I asked, how are you doing that? I've had a terrible experience and everything has been different since. So my job here is to pass that on to you and you can catch the rhythm and see why this is so much fun. So kits are the way to go. You're not only getting the exact fabrics that we spend a lot of time selecting, always beautiful quality fabrics. These are mostly Riley Blake, Lori Holt fabrics here, but you're also getting your backing fabric, enough for the hanging sleeve. There's a little hanging sleeve on the back here. This is the paisleys and polka dot display. This is one display option. You could use the act felt. But in addition to the fabrics for the front and the back and the hanging sleeve, you're also getting your binding. And I love that you're getting those fabrics, not a likeness, those fabrics. We all know what that's like to see a quilt on the wall, but the kit you're actually buying is close, but not that. No, I want what I see on the wall. You're also getting a full color tested pattern because, as you know at Shabby, we write a preliminary pattern, grab our fabric, and our makers are busy making this exact project, making edits if necessary as they go. That way when you get your pattern, you can know a professional maker has gone through your pattern so that you can have a great experience, right? It's been tested. So as I said, full color, helping you to identify the fabrics in your kit. Make sure you're giving everything a lot of sizing and a good press because there's a lot of bias involved with foundation paper piecing, and it's going to help stabilize our fabrics and give nice firm presses if everything has a little bit of light sizing in it. Whatever brand you like. There's not a particular brand that we're wedded to here. So you get all your fabrics cut out, and you also have stickers, right? As you make a cut, sticker that. Let's look at our pattern here. It happens to be this fabric, our background fabric. And we have a lot of cuts of that, of course. Look at how our first cut happens to be a 6x4, and that is just happens to be positioned on our foundation papers in position C9. That might not mean anything to you, but all you need to care about is that you grab that fabric after it's been sized and you're cutting that to 6x4 and you're grabbing the first sticker on your sheet and you're putting C9 on that. And you just keep going. The next cut is 4.5x3, two of those. One's going to be labeled B1 and one's going to be labeled B6. Look at that. Those are your next stickers, right? You just keep cutting until there's no stickers left. Notice they're either A, B, or C. That's because in this particular example, to put our apple together, we used 3 different sections. Section A, one piece here for section B all by itself. And today we're going to be doing letter C together. And then we bring it all together like we do with any quilt block, right? Any quilt block has probably a top row, a middle row, and a bottom row. You make those separately and merge them together. This is like that, but different because it is foundation paper piecing. So that getting yourself organized is one of the most important parts of foundation paper piecing. And this is why we provide the stickers for you to get everything cut and labeled. Since you have all of your stickers are now off your sheet and on your fabrics, gather up your A fabric, gather up your 1B fabric right here, and gather up your C fabrics and put them in order. A1, A2, A3, all the way through that highest number. Same thing for section C, and we know for section B we only have that one piece here in this particular block. Once you've done that, now we go to our foundations. So this is when we say, okay, we have our section A, we have our section B. I would just cut that section B out and put it aside so that we just have our section C here all by itself. And notice I did not cut on that outermost drawn line, printed line I should say, not yet. That's for later on when we trim everything up, one of my favorite steps. So what is this business about trim, sew, press that you're talking about, Jen? Before we can even get into the rhythm of trim, sew, press, the first thing that we need to do, and this will be true of every first piece of each section, so A1, B1, C1, and so on and so forth, right? There's only A, B, and C in this block, but let's pretend you are working on a much larger project. Maybe there's a D section, E section. It doesn't matter how many different sections. The first piece is always treated differently, and that is because we need to use a little bit of a glue pen. I like my Sewline fabric glue pen here. It's water soluble. I love that it dries clear. This is meant for fabric. I've made the mistake of doing the whole dollar store thing with the purple glue stick, and guess what? It didn't dry clear. And I used that purple on the back of a white fabric, and I, to this day, can see just a little bit of that purple behind there, and it drives me crazy. So here's what we do. The back of the paper, you can see on the front, we see our letters and we see our numbers. On the back of this paper and on the back of our fabric here, there's my stack of letter C. I want to put the back of my fabric to the back of my paper. And you're like, but how do I see where to put it? This is why I have a light pad on set with me. So let's look at the front here. Our goal is to not only have our fabric cover the lines here of C1, but 1/4 of an inch all the way around at least. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to turn the light pad on. You can see here, we wouldn't want to position this here, right? Because I don't have 1/4 inch beyond. We give you a nice big piece. Let's put a little bit of glue here. And I'm just going to position this so that I easily have at least this footprint and 1/4 inch all the way around, okay? Once we've done that, you're done with the glue stick for this section. You would take it out later when you get ready to do section B. And I'm just going to touch on that while we're here. Again, I would roughly cut around. You'll have your B1 fabric, and that's listed here. We're going to be cutting that fabric to, looks like a 4.5 by 3. And we're just going to be gluing that to the back of it. And then I bring this particular shape to my cutting mat and I simply cut on the outermost line. That's how you work with a section when there's only one fabric. But of course, for the section we're working on, there are definitely more than one piece, right? There's 9 to be exact, C1 all the way through C9. So once we've confirmed back to back, now this is where we begin a process, and we're going to be using a very important sewing notion that was designed specifically for foundation paper piecing called add 1/4 plus. This is a specialty tool. It's phenomenal. And there are the original add 1/4 and the add 1/4 plus is so much better. This set is available in the yellow or pink. And how this works is one side has a tapered side and the other has a ledge. So we're going to begin with the tapered side, and we begin to fold using the tapered edge. Let's look at where we are right now. Our C1 is down, and we're going to work from 1 all the way up. So where we will fold our paper first is the line that's between 1 and 2. So I'm just going to turn this so that it's in a more natural position for me. I'll try to keep my head out of the way. I'm going to lay the add 1/4. I could either lay it like this so it kind of has this ramp kind of sloping, or I can flip it over so it lays even flatter against the table. I'm going to scooch that till it's just to the left of that line, and I'm going to fold that back. And let's have a look and see how we did. Oh, I'm way off. I don't know what happened there, but let's try that all over again. That's why we take a look. Now we're like, oh yeah, that's where that should be. Perfect. Okay. Now we turn it over. This little lip here, look how that just clicks in. It literally locks in, and I slide that up and down, and I'm going to trim, sew, press. Once we have our first piece trimmed, here comes C2. Just like we do in normal patchwork, if we want to sew two pieces of fabric together, we know that we always need to place them right sides together, sew, because they're going to be turning. That's the same way in foundation paper piecing. So right now, I'm just kind of placing this here blindly, not really knowing if I'm in the right location. I'm going to once again have my light source ready, position this right side together, just guessing, kind of simulate sewing 1/4 inch, flip it over and look. Now look how I am way short of this corner. I'm not close. I need to go this way, right? So I'm going to come way down, take a little bit of a big correction, and let's do that once again. Now that looks great. We have 1/4 inch all the way around, so that's a good spot. Once you find that sweet spot, I'm going to just hold this in place, flip it over, because you're always going to sew on the side where you can see the line. That makes sense. We can't sew from the back because we don't know where to sew. So we're going to sew on the front side. Let's talk about where to sew, and we're going to sew on a shortened stitch length of a 1.5. By default, most machines, and the BERNINA in particular, the stitch length is a 2.5 millimeter. That's just kind of the ballpark of most machines. We're going to bring that way back to a 1.5, and I've loaded it in Microtex sharp needle. This is a size 70. It's a finer needle than I normally do patchwork with because I want to pierce this line, and I want this to just hit this so perfectly and perforate my paper, because remember, we are going to be removing those papers later. So I have a shortened stitch length. I have a Microtex needle inside my machine right now, and the reason I've got my shortened stitch length is, as I said, to perforate the paper. But there's another reason. When I shorten my stitch length, that means I'm putting more thread in a given distance, right? Makes sense. A longer stitch length is like a basting stitch, easily comes out. Shorter stitch lengths, locking things in. So when I remove the paper, nothing's moving. So that's the other benefit to a shortened stitch length. Where we're going to sew is we're going to start sewing just before the line, so directly on the line and straight off, okay? So just before on the line and straight off, let's go get that done. So this is the S portion of TSP. Sometimes I kind of hand guide that where I want that to start. If your machine will tolerate that, go ahead and do it. Okay, trim, sew, and I bet you know already what that P just might be, right? Just like we do with regular patchwork, once we place two pieces right side together, sew our seam allowance, we want to press them open. So this is where the letter P comes in, and you've got a couple of choices here. The natural one that we would all probably grab for would be our iron. Now you may be in a shared environment, maybe you're at a quilt retreat. I'm going to, for this first one, just going to go ahead and use my iron. For the next one, I'm going to use the Clover Roll and Press. That's right here. These are engineered in Japan, and I actually saw a lot of that when we were at Spring Quilt Retreat, because you had 4 makers at a table with 1 iron. People didn't want to wait in line. They didn't want to get up and go over there. They wanted to be able to sew and press, trim, sew, press, and stay right in this kind of little hub. And I thought they did a phenomenal job. This presses things out really well, but we'll do that on the next go around so you can see the difference. Obviously, this was pressed with an iron. All right, we already did the union between 1 and 2. What's next? The union between 2 and 3. The line between 2 and 3. So here, we simply turn our add a quarter over. We're going to fold this back. Did a good job on that one. Not sure what happened on that last one. And now we're going to flip this over. Lock that in, and we're going to press, or excuse me, cut. We're going to cut, no pressing yet. Now we take our C3, and once again, I'm like, ooh, where should I be on here? Let's look. Oh, it looks like maybe bias over here. I'm just going to guess initially, take it to my light source. I made it, but I'm going to scoot it over just a little bit more to have a little bit more breathing room. Let's test that one more time. Yep, all the way around. So what do? Make sure we're kind of back in position. Trap that with my fingers. Just flip it over. I'm going to put a pin in that's out of the way of the track. I have the option, I'm going to give you two options. You decide what you like. You can either start sewing right off and onto the line and stopping just after this line, or you can start just before the line here and sew straight off. It doesn't matter, but you have to either start here, end here, or start here and end there. That's it. However you want to approach that. So let's sew that down. So this is our second round trip of our trim, sew, and press. Okay, so we said on this one, we would try that Clover roll and press so you can see what it's capable of doing. Even if you're not in a maybe quote retreat shared resource setting where you only have one iron to multiple makers, you might have kids, grandkids, your own kids, where you're worried about them pulling on the cord of an iron, which is obviously always a threat, right? Especially if it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. A great option is to use this instead of that iron. So let's just show you what that looks like. And you can see it does a fantastic job. So we're just going to keep moving on. Now that we've done the line between 1 and 2, the line between 2 and 3, we move to the line between 3 and 4. That's it. This is the rhythm I talk about. So let's go through it one more time, and then I'm going to jump all the way ahead to another piece I've prepared in advance, and we'll just be adding C9 and trimming this whole thing up. So once again, on the tapered side, the line between 3 and 4, and because I started a little bit before the line, even if I ever have to tear the paper to be able to fold back on the line, that's fine. Remember, we're not keeping the paper. It's going to be removed. Okay. Now sometimes, depending on the angle, this may be too short. This is why the add a quarter set of 2 is a great idea. You will want to work on projects that are larger. And this 6-inch just runs out of real estate, right? That's where you grab for the larger 12-inch, and that's why I just recommend just go ahead and get the 2-pack, because you're going to want to do this again and again. And once you catch the rhythm, it's really, really fun. And you want to be able to show other people what you've learned how to do. It's always nice to share that knowledge. Okay, don't know where that should go. I can kind of try to take a peek and think it's probably going to be this direction. But let's flip it over. Let's take it to our light source. Oh, look at this. I want you to see this. Look down here. I was wrong. I got to go this way. So now let's scoot this way. Oh, way off on that one. Okay. Let's flip that. Have a look. Nope. Now I scooted it over a little bit too much, right? Let's say that you I'm going to address this right now. Let's say you're like, I'm just going to go for it. You flip it over and realize, I am too short. You must seam rip at that point. You must grab for that seam ripper and seam ripper. And remember, you're on a short stitch length level 1.5. The seam ripping won't be fun, and you might even tear the paper just a touch. You might want to go back and add a little bit of tape to kind of keep the whole foundation paper together and while you piece the rest of it. So this is why we want to make with absolute certainty that we're in the right spot, because I have done that seam ripping and nobody was having a whole bunch of fun. Now that is in the right spot. So this one's a little bit fussy. Boy, I don't want to lose that spot right there. Okay, now that we know we're at the right spot, I'm going to come here to the front. All right, we know we can sew here, right on, stop right there, or turn around and start right here and sew right off. However you want to do it. And we press. Now this one, being that it was kind of snug on both ends, I'm going to double check that I didn't miss anything. Let's see how we did. Yep, I think we're good all the way around. But if I wasn't, I'm seam ripping and we go again. So that's just kind of how that works. Okay, this would be next. This is next. The line between 6 and 7, the line between 7 and 8. So let's just jump ahead here. Two. There we are. And let's look. My first instinct would go this way, but you can see how long this is now. That's a very unique angle right there. This is going to be a little bit of a challenge to figure out where should that go. I'm definitely going to be using my light pad here to help me figure out. Actually, I got ahead of myself now, didn't I? The line between 8 and 9 needs to be trimmed. So let's not get ahead of ourselves, which I tried to do just now. 8 and 9. Fold this back. That's going to make all this fabric disappear. That's kind of in my way visually. There we go. Trim that. Lock this in. Trim. Now, this is going to make this a lot simpler for us to figure out where this should be. Let's move that out of the way. We're going to bring our light pad in so we can work on this together. So you can see that right there. Now, as I flip this, look how I'm missing this corner. So we got to go way over here. Okay, maybe it is going to be this way. Ah, see how I assumed? I've been doing this now for 4 years, and I literally got that piece and assumed it was wrong because I see this footprint and you think it has to go this way. This is how you can get fooled. You only have to seam rip it one time for you to learn the lesson in a painful way that it's better to double check than seam rip. Nobody's having fun with that. All right, so we are in a good spot. Let's pin that. Now I like where I get to sew on this one because I can sew straight off to straight off. So let's go do that right now. my favorite part. It's coming up. I want to show you what this looks like. Looks crazy. You're like, that looks crazy. I know, but trust the process. Grab a straight edge. I love my Creative Grid 2.5 by 12.5. We all have those bigger rulers, but how clunky they would be, right? It's nice to work with a ruler that's kind of just bite-sized. Notice this outermost light line. This is now where we place our ruler exactly on that line, giving a nice press. The Creative Grid ruler here has a grip on it, so once I press down, nothing is moving. Notice how I'm just spinning the project around, not necessarily picking it up, just kind of stabilizing everything. Now this little jog down here, I'll go ahead and just trim straight over, and then we'll make sure we pick up that little jog in the end right there. Those are kind of engineered corners, and we do that so that everything clicks together. Now, you may be excited like I was the first time I did foundation paper piecing, and I started removing the paper right now. Don't do it. Don't do it. See this line, this solid line right here? That's your 1/4 inch seam allowance. And look at the information that we have here. Right? We had our section A that we did. We have our section B, which is just the one piece. We sewed those together. We were using our lines to help us get that exact 1/4 inch, and we removed the paper just in the seam allowance to reduce the bulk. Makes sense. We also refer to our pattern because our pattern is giving us pressing guidance. Notice how that arrow is saying A to B. Okay, that is pressed A to B. Okay, perfect. So now we're here like this. This is saying this joins from A, this joins A to B. So look at this. Look how this fits perfectly. This is why people love foundation paper piecing. You're achieving angles and precision that you can't achieve any other way. And this is a little bit of a challenge because it's a bit of a mind bender, right? You've got paper on one side and fabric on the other, but once you catch this rhythm, it's so cool, and the precision of it is very, very satisfying. So our job now is to stack these pieces exactly top to bottom. Notice I pin in the beginning, I pin in the end, and then I pin in everything in between, so that piece behind's not scooting down where I can't see it. I want everything in one place. Now when I go to my machine, I'm simply sewing straight off, exactly on the line and straight off. Okay, let's go do that. Okay, look at that. I love it. Our instruction is to press towards C. I like to warm that up, and look how I press towards C, and everything is just incredible, right? Now, we like to even go so far as to leave the paper on when we're putting our side borders on. Why? Because I have my 1/4 inch seam allowance. So while you could put your side borders on and sew from this side, that means you have to find the 1/4 inch seam allowance. If we put the border strip here and sew from this side, you're simply sewing on these lines, and the same thing for the top and bottom border. Once the top and bottom borders are on, now we get busy and start removing our paper here, right? We start taking things away. And for any little nooks and crannies, like down in these corners here, like right in there, that just make me crazy. My fingers don't get in there. That's why this notion here, the Gypsy Quilter tweezers, is one of the notions that we find ourselves most sold out of. People have figured out whether you're doing beading, whether you're removing paper for foundation paper piecing, whatever it is that's taking a precise, where it's got a very precise point where you can pick that up. These are incredible and affordable. So this is how I get all the little things out of the nooks and crannies, right? So now this would be ready to layer our Cali-Del fusible fleece, which we like to fuse to the back of the top here. We put our backing on. You could use your Clover Wonder Pins to secure those together, a basting spray, even a basting glue that we have. And this is where we like to now use our thread set. As you can see from the project here, we didn't stitch in the ditch between the green and the cream. We actually stitched inside of that, so you're succinctly seeing that beautiful thread. As patchwork people, so many times we work with gray, white, or black. How boring is that? It's nice to be able to change our thread and see it. So this is why we go ahead and let you see everything, and we stitch through all 3 layers, and it gives it such a beautiful embossed look. Once all of that top quilting is done, you're trimming away the excess fusible fleece, and you're trimming away your excess backing, and then you're off to binding, and if you're going to be displaying it like this, adding that hanging sleeve. And I've covered that in the very first video of this series, so if you want to have me step you through that, be sure to check out that video. But the main thing today, and boy, I learned a lot. Some of my own assumptions, especially on that last piece, 9, C9. I was sure it was going to be canted this way, and in the end, nope, had to be turned. So I'm still learning too, and I've learned now to not make assumptions. So now that you can see how fun and easy it is to actually catch the rhythm of foundation paper piecing, head to the website to pick up your kit. What an incredible value to have all the same fabrics, everything you need to be able to make the project. Just remember to pick up the add a quarter ruler set if you don't already have that in either the yellow or the pink. Pick up your Cali-Del, the thread set, and any other notions you might need.